For spine-chilling true autumn horrors revealed, sinister secrets and cursed encounters await. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows across the quiet suburb of Cincinnati. Kids laughed in the distance, their voices echoing like whispers of a forgotten time. But as Sarah watched her children, Lucy and Max, carve pumpkins on the porch, a shiver traveled down her spine. The air felt heavy, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. Just the wind, she told herself. Then she heard it, the whispers. They were soft at first, a mere rustling among the leaves. But as the sun disappeared, the tones grew sharper, almost urgent. Lucy and Max giggled, their small voices mingling with the chilling sounds. "Mommy, can we invite our friend again?" Max asked, his eyes wide with innocent excitement. Sarah's heart raced. "Friend?" she echoed, a knot forming in her stomach. They had been talking about their imaginary friend for weeks, but tonight felt different, strained. The neighborhood was alive with the thrum of barbecues, the scent of grilled burgers mingling with fallen leaves. But all she could think about were those whispers, creeping closer like shadows stretching into the darkness. Perhaps it was the stress of her job as a nurse, the long hours, or the pressure of being a single parent. Yet, something primal told her to watch her children closely. Mr. Thompson, the retired cop next door, waved from his yard, sharing knowing smiles as always. But even his friendly demeanor felt like a mask that day. What was lurking beneath those smiles? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night fell, the air around her grew thick with unease. Shadows clung to the edges of her home as if waiting for a signal to pounce. Lucy and Max became enthralled by their imaginary friend, chatting enthusiastically in a language only they understood. She could no longer ignore it, the whispered secrets, the feeling of being watched. One Friday evening, anxious and desperate, Sarah dropped off a casserole at Mr. Thompson's house, hoping for anything that could ease her panic. As she rummaged through his stack of old newspapers while waiting, an article caught her eye. The headline sent icicles of fear racing down her spine, decades-old disappearances unraveled as community's dark history exposed. It talked of children vanishing without a trace, with shadowy figures lurking in their wake. Her pulse quickened. Was Mr. Thompson part of it? The warmth of the neighborhood felt like an illusion now, a veneer covering a festering wound. She glanced at him, chatting amiably with a neighbor, completely unaware of her growing despair. Quickly exiting his porch, Sarah rushed home, fighting the tightening knot in her throat. That Halloween night, as the clock struck 8, she found Lucy and Max outside again, whispering to the gathering darkness. "What are you doing?" she called, but they didn't react. Standing in awe before a presence hidden amidst the trees, she felt a breath of dread clawing at her heart. Behind them, cloaked in shadows, was Mr. Thompson, a thin smile creeping across his face. What lay behind that smile? Something darker than she had ever imagined lurked just out of sight, ready to unveil its true nature. The air thickened as Sarah held her breath, eyes locked on Mr. Thompson. His shadow stretched like a nightmare across the yard. Lucy and Max stood entranced, their little hands entwined, gazing at the man who once seemed harmless, a neighbor, a friendly face in the crowd. But now, the very sight of him twisted her insides. "Kids, come inside," she called, her voice trembling. But they stayed, as if held by invisible strings. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, the shadows swallowing him as he moved, his smile unfaltering. There was something wrong, a predatory gleam in his eyes that made the hairs on her arms stand. "Let them play, Sarah. They're just having fun." He spoke softly, his voice smooth like velvet, yet sharp enough to cut through the tension. Something in that tone made her stomach churn. Fun? She echoed, forcing a grin that felt wrong on her face. It's late. Time for bed. But Lucy giggled, pointing into the darkness. Mommy, look. Our friend is here. A chill lanced through her. The friend. What had been innocent was now sinister in the twilight. The whispered conversations that had filled her home with laughter now echoed threats in her mind. She stepped closer, grabbing Lucy's arm. No, honey. Come inside, now. Max's face turned serious, eyes wide. But, he wants to play too. Thompson chuckled, a sound that slithered over Sarah's skin, raising goosebumps. The giggles of her children morphed into a chant, a nursery rhyme sung in a haunting tone that twisted her heart. Children should be seen and not heard, Thompson echoed, his smile stretching wider now, revealing teeth too sharp, too unsettling. Enough! Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging, her heart hammering against her ribs. She pulled Max and Lucy closer, feeling their little hearts beating in sync with her own terror. We're going inside. Before she could move, a powerful force tugged at her. Shadows flickered, the night growing oppressive. The whispers bloomed, a cacophony of overlapping voices, weaving tales of horror that made her flesh crawl. Why don't you join us, Sarah? Thompson suggested, eyes glistening like obsidian. You could see what the children talk about. Learn their secrets. Everything in her screamed to run, but she felt weightless, frozen by his gaze. Just then, a rustle came from the nearby trees. A figure, cloaked in darkness, stepped forward, its features obscured but its intent sharp as a knife. Mommy! Lucy cried, breaking the spell, pulling at Sarah's arm. I want to go home. In that moment, adrenaline superseded dread. Sarah gripped their hands tightly, her own trembling, as she yanked her children towards the door. They fought against the shadows that loomed closer, feeling the tendrils of cold creeping across her back. Just as they reached the safety of their threshold, laughter erupted behind them, a chorus of twisted, childlike voices rising with malicious glee. From the dark, Mr. Thompson's voice carried over it all, low and sinister, "You can't hide forever, Sarah. You'll see." The door slammed shut. Heart racing, she turned to her children, their faces fearful, reflecting her own panic. She locked the door and grasped her phone. Nothing but static filled it, a haunting reminder of growing isolation. "We're safe," she whispered, but an ounce of conviction trembled in her voice. Outside, the laughter continued, a fading melody of despair. The whispers grew faint, but the presence loomed just beyond the glass, a promise of something more sinister waiting in the dark. And then it clicked: Max's toy, the one they left outside. Quiet horror settled deep in her gut as she looked at her son. "What's wrong?" he asked, confusion lighting his features. "Your friend, he took it," was all she could manage to say. But that chill, the dark sensation, told her there was more. A sense of urgency wrapped around her heart like a vice. "What friend, Mommy?" Max asked again, the innocence painfully evident in his gaze. The whisper returned, louder now, threatening to pierce through the quiet. What had they truly invited into their lives? As shadows danced outside their windows, Sarah knew one thing: whatever Mr. Thompson had unleashed would come calling again. What if next time, there was no escaping? The house felt smaller now, walls closing in, shadows stretched thin and long. Sarah's breath hitched, panic gnawing at every corner of her thoughts. The static on her phone was a mocking reminder of the world slipping away, cutting her off from help. She glanced at Max, still clutching Lucy's hand, their innocence wrapped in layers of dread. "We have to do something," she said, not entirely sure what that meant. Every instinct screamed at her to barricade the windows, to shield her children from the malevolence that lurked so close. But as she scanned the dimly lit living room, her heart sank. "Mommy, I want my toy," Max whined, his voice cutting through the thick, suffocating air. "It's my favorite." "It's just a toy, Max." She snapped, instantly regretting the sharpness in her tone, but the weight of stress threatened to overwhelm her. "We can get another." "No," he interrupted, his eyes welling with tears. "I want Buzz." "Yes, my friend." Sarah swallowed hard. The way his little voice trembled shook her. The very idea that a toy could embody friendship and safety felt grotesque in that moment. What had Mr. Thompson turned them into? Okay, she muttered, desperate to placate him. "We'll find it tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Lucy echoed, her 2-year-old face scrunching in confusion. "Yes, tomorrow," Sarah insisted, as the laughter from outside crescendoed into a mocking echo of their children's giggles. Her gut twisted at the thought of Mr. Thompson bending her kids' minds so easily. "Right now, we need to stay inside." But the shadows outside pulsed with an energy that felt alive, almost as if they were breathing. The night wrapped itself tighter around their home, an encroaching dread that seeped into every crevice. The toys scattered across the floor now seemed more like traps, distractions in a game she hadn't opted to play. "Mommy, can we watch TV?" Max asked, his small voice a beacon of childish hope. "Lucy, can you find the remote?" Sarah asked, hoping against hope to distract them. But as Lucy jumped up, the television flickered a light in the darkness, and with it came the low hum of static, dimming slightly every time Sarah pressed the buttons. "It's broken!" Lucy cried out, disappointment swirling, shifting the atmosphere in the room from tense to chilling. "No!" Sarah shouted. Whatever connection to the world outside was at stake. Frantically she pressed the buttons again, an erratic pulse of noise cutting through the oppressive silence. Just then, the lights flickered, and the laughter outside surged. Like a flood, it spilled in through the windows, overwhelming her senses. She grabbed her children close, their small bodies trembling against hers. The shadows danced at the edges, creeping inward, and in that moment, something caught her eye beyond the glass. "Mommy, look!" Lucy's finger pointed to the window, a glint of light reflecting off something small and sharp lying in the grass. The realization hit hard as her heart stopped. It was Max's missing toy, Buzz Lightyear, but it was smeared with mud and something darker, a shadow mixing with it as if brewing with vile intent. "No, no! Stay back!" Sarah hollered, pulling Max and Lucy away from the window as the laughter escalated into a fever pitch, echoing inside her skull. But something fluttered against the glass, an unearthly whisper that seemed to know her name. The shadows pressed closer, fundamentals of a dreadful reality unraveling before her eyes. "Sarah, let the children come out to play," the voice drifted, an echo of Mr. Thompson's charm, but laced with venom. She felt the panic freeze her heart, a dread she couldn't shake. "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice barely a sound. The atmosphere shifted, coiling tighter around her, wrapping her in despair. What if the next time they stepped outside, the darkness took her children forever? "Mommy, I'm scared." Max's voice trembled. "Me too, baby," she whispered back, feeling the invisible threads of control slipping away. And with that, an ominous silence fell, punctured only by the sound of footsteps approaching, thickening the air. With each echo, what knew no mercy was coming, and time was running out. Would they be able to resist the darkness, or would they fall prey to the very shadows that once seemed benign? The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in sync with the brutish silence that followed. It felt like a countdown, a ticking clock with no hands. She crouched low, her breath shallow, eyes glued to the door as if willing it not to open. What was out there? Mr. Thompson's voice echoed in her mind, slithering through the darkness like a serpent. "Mommy," Lucy whimpered, her tiny fingers clutching Sarah's shirt. Max pressed against his mother, wide-eyed and trembling. "It's okay. It's okay, Sarah breathed, but the words felt like sand in her mouth. They were anything but okay. The doorknob rattled slightly, an unsettling sound that seemed to reverberate through the entire room. It twisted slowly, a deliberate movement. "Mommy?" Max's voice cracked, the innocence of his call piercing the oppressive air. "Shoo," Sarah hissed, as she frantically weighed her options. Should she hide them under a blanket, under the couch? Every instinct urged her to run, to flee the sense of inevitability that clawed its way to the surface. But there was nowhere to go. The door creaked open. Darkened air spilled into the room, twisting like smoke. A figure stood in the frame, a silhouette sharply defined against the eerie glow of the streetlight outside. It was Mr. Thompson, but he looked different, his smile too wide, his eyes glistening with a hunger that didn't belong in a human face. "Sarah," he sang, voice syrupy and sickly sweet. "The children have been so lively. It's time for them to join in the fun." "No." Sarah's voice cut out, a desperate scream caught in her throat. She pushed back against the wave of dread nearly swallowing her whole. "Get away from us." He stepped inside, shadowing the light, clouding the room with his presence. "You misunderstand me. They need to come and play with the others." Max's sob turned into a whimper, and Sarah felt the confines of the walls grow oppressive, as if they were closing in to devour her children. "No!" She shouted again, shaking her head as she backed away, feeling the sofa's edge digging painfully into her back. Lucy's eyes widened, reflecting sheer terror as the figure glided closer. "Mommy," she whimpered. "Stay behind me," Sarah ordered, raising her hands as if they could somehow shield her children from this encroaching nightmare. The shadows around Mr. Thompson rippled, reaching, beckoning. "Playing is what makes us stronger, Sarah. What brings us all together." His voice curled around her like smoke, clinging and suffocating. "Will you deny them joy?" But it wasn't joy. Joy felt light, like butterflies dancing in a sunbeam. This was something darker, sinister, an insatiable darkness that wanted to rub her children's light out. He took another step closer, the sound of his feet echoing like a drumbeat of doom. "Join us," he urged, extending his hand, fingers curling in a beckoning motion. The shadows seemed to swirl behind him, hungry and alive. "No, no, no," the words fled from her lips, caught in a whirlwind of fear. She felt small in that moment, helpless against the tide of dread. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah scooped both children into her arms, holding them tight. "We are not going with you," she shouted. But as his laughter floated through the air, a sound twisted and cruel, the silence outside seemed to swallow her words whole. The darkness pressed in like a vice, and for the first time, doubt seeped into her veins. Could she protect them? "Let us play," Mr. Thompson hissed, voice thick with anticipation. In that moment, Sarah knew she was standing on the brink of something unfathomable. The heart-stopping truth loomed: if she didn't act now, what would become of her children? The shadows thrummed in excitement. What grotesque reality awaited them on the other side if she failed to fight back? An unsettling awareness prickled at her skin. She had to come up with a plan. But time was slipping through her fingers. Would she be able to keep them safe as the night drew its breath around them? The door creaked open wider, inviting despair, and Sarah knew the real nightmare was just beginning. The darkness writhed like a living thing as Mr. Thompson inched closer, his unnatural grin stretching unnervingly across his face. Sarah shoved the kids behind her, their small bodies pressed against her like anchors against the tide of horror threatening to sweep them away. Panic clawed at her throat, threatening to choke her. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lucy whimpered, her voice trembling. The sight of that innocent little face, so trusting yet terrified, sent a jolt of resolve through Sarah. "I won't let him take you," she whispered fiercely, her heart hammering. "Playtime awaits," Mr. Thompson sang, his words dripping with malice. Without warning, the shadows behind him surged forward, claws of darkness seeking to grasp what they could. They felt cold, like fingers reaching from an abyss. Thinking quickly, Sarah swung her arm out, knocking over a lamp. The crash echoed like the shattering of ice, reverberating through the stillness. The figure hesitated, momentarily distracted by the sudden noise. "Run!" Sarah shouted, barely able to contain the fear threatening to overwhelm her. She dashed toward the kitchen, dragging her children along, their tiny feet stumbling against the floor. The door to the basement beckoned a dark pit of uncertainty. But it might be their only chance. Down the narrow stairs, they tumbled. Shadows enveloped them like a suffocating blanket as they landed with a soft thud on the cold concrete floor. Sarah quickly fumbled to pull the door shut, slamming it against the wall. Heart racing, she pressed her ear against the door. There were no more footsteps above, only the persistent thumping of her heart and the rattled breaths of her children. Max squeezed her hand, eyes wide with terror. "What's happening, Mommy? Who is he?" "It doesn't matter," she muttered, her voice firm despite the fear sweeping through her. "We just need to stay quiet." Lucy nestled against her, trembling. "I don't want to die." The words hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on Sarah. She had to keep hope alive, but how? Just then, a noise from above disrupted her thoughts, a low, rumbling chuckle spilling into the basement, sending icy fingers down her spine. "Sarah!" The voice from above twisted like a knife, seeping into the darkness. "Where are you hiding?" A thud reverberated predictably against the floor as Sarah's pulse quickened. The rhythmic movement was like that of a predator stalking its prey, deliberate and sinister. He was not far, and nowhere to run. Stay close to me," she whispered, clutching her children tighter, feeling their breaths quicken with her own. She needed a plan, but the claustrophobia of the basement closed in like a trap. Suddenly, the shadows around her began to pulse, flickering with an unnatural glow. It was as if the darkness sensed their fear, feeding off it, becoming something alive. "We're going to find you," Mr. Thompson taunted, his laughter echoing like voices of lost souls. Sarah's mind raced. Staring at the concrete walls, her eyes fell on the cluttered remnants of old boxes and forgotten furniture. An idea sparked in the haze of fear. "Under the stairs," she whispered urgently. "Quick!" As they huddled under the creaky wooden steps, Sarah felt the tug of dread tighten around her heart. She held her breath. Desperation surged. Would it be enough to fool whatever dark entity Mr. Thompson had become? The footsteps were louder now, closer. Sarah could feel them vibrating through the floorboards like an impending storm. "Let us play," he sang, the note rising in pitch with a terrible glee. Trapped in that suffocating dark space, Sarah's thoughts raced. They were holding their breath, and so was the night. If there was no escape, she had to find a way to fight back. But how? What could challenge a force of darkness that consumed joy? Just then, a flicker of light caught her eye, a small glimmer in the shadows near the edge of the basement. A moment of false hope or a cruel illusion? As Mr. Thompson's silhouette loomed ever closer, Sarah steeled herself. "We will not play your game," she thought fiercely. But in that suffocating silence, as fear seeped into every corner, she realized a terrifying truth: she needed to confront the very horror threatening to swallow them whole. What awaited them if she couldn't muster the strength? Would darkness consume them forever, or was there a shred of light yet to be discovered? The shadows thickened, swirling as if the basement itself were alive and breathing. Sarah squeezed her children's hands, each heartbeat echoing against the oppressive silence. The flicker of light beckoned, drawing her gaze from the darkness. It seemed fragile, but it was there's an anchor in that disorienting void. "Mommy, what's that light?" Max whispered, his voice barely above a trembling breath. "I don't know, sweetie," Sarah replied, fighting to keep the tremor out of her voice. "But we have to be very quiet." Mr. Thompson's laughter grew louder, mingling with the scratching sounds of claws against the basement floor. The walls felt confining, closing in on them as Sarah's lungs tightened. Would they be trapped here forever? Then a whisper broke through the tension, faint and unnerving. "Sarah, don't you want to play?" A chill raced down her spine. "We're not playing with you," she shouted, her voice firm despite the terror clawing at her insides. In that moment of defiance, the basement trembled, and the flicker of light shimmered brighter. It danced like fire against the concrete walls. "Playtime is forever," Mr. Thompson's voice dripped with sickening glee. As if in response, the light expanded, illuminating the corners of the basement with an ethereal glow. Hacks of memories flooded in, faces of forgotten friends popping into her mind, laughter intertwined with joy. The realization hit her like a jolt. Hope was not gone, it was merely dormant like a seed waiting for light. "Think, Sarah," she murmured to herself. "What connects to that light?" The boxes around them shifted in her mind. Childhood toys, crayon drawings, remnants of laughter, a way to fight back. They were not just objects, they were bonded memories, reflections of everything that made her family whole. "Mommy? What do we do?" Lucy whimpered, eyes wide with fear, and her tiny frame shook against Sarah's. "Close your eyes and think of a happy memory," Sarah urged, her own heart pounding with urgency. "Let's remember fun times." Max clutched his sister, and for a few terrifying moments, the basement was silent save for a low hum that thrummed around them. Sarah closed her eyes too, desperately dragging thoughts of family hikes, birthday cakes, and laughter through the park into focus. The light shimmered explosively, sending shadows leaping back. Sarah's heart raced. This was it, this was how they could confront the darkness. "Keep holding on. Don't let go," she urged, digging deep into her memories, fueling the light with their happiness. But suddenly, the flickering ceased. The laughter turned to a dark, unholy pitch, slicing through their sanctuary. "You think you can escape me with mere memories?" Mr. Thompson's voice grew low and menacing. "I will consume those sweet wretched thoughts." A raw panic seized Sarah. "No. We are stronger than you." She felt the grip of her children tightening as the shadows fought back, grappling at the edges of their newfound hope, hungry. Desperation surged within her as she opened her eyes, staring at the dark shape that loomed ever closer. The bright glimmer was becoming a beacon, casting shadows away, but it felt fragile. Then, a realization struck her. "Hold on to each other," she cried, gripping them fiercely. "We're not just memories. We're a family." Light erupted from their joined hands, pouring through the basement in a blaze of warmth. The shadows recoiled, the sinister laughter faltering. Mr. Thompson's eyes widened in shock, fury twisting his already grotesque face. "Unsuitable, unplayable," he hissed as the darkness hissed and shrank back, revealing an entrance, a path to the outside. "Run!" Sarah shouted, bolting toward the opening. But as they surged forward, a chilling laughter echoed behind them. "You may escape, but you cannot escape me." As they burst into the night, breathless and trembling, Sarah turned back, heart racing. The darkness hunched where they had been, waiting, ever patient. She didn't feel safe, not yet. They had won this round, but the battle wasn't over. What remained of Mr. Thompson, lurking within the shadows? With a fierce resolve, Sarah set her eyes on the horizon. "We have to figure out how to stop him for good," she said. But first, they had to survive the night. And there was something lurking in the trees, watching, waiting for their next move. Where would they go now? And how would they face the specter of darkness that still waited to snatch them away? The chill of the night wrapped around them like a damp blanket. The shadows stretched long and twisted in the moonlight. Each rustle of leaves turned into a whisper, a threat lurking just beyond the pale glow that enveloped Sarah and her children. Her heart thundered in her chest as they stumbled away from the basement, every step heavy with fear. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Lucy's small voice cut through the heavy silence, each word trembling as much as her small body. "We need to find a place to hide." "Somewhere safe," Sarah replied, forcing down the dread that surged with each heartbeat. But as she looked into the darkness, her mind grappled with what safe could even mean anymore. They pressed deeper into the woods, branches clawing at their clothes while unseen creatures skittered in the underbrush. It felt like the forest was alive, watching, judging, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The air thickened, suffocating her, and Sarah's resolve wavered. "What if he finds us?" Max uttered, voice cracking. His grip on Lucy was tight, almost protective, but it didn't ease the anxiety ebbing through their small circle. They stopped suddenly, breathless, as a low rustle shivered through the nearby trees. Sarah turned, heart pounding, eyes wide. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched gnawed at her. "We need to keep moving," she urged, but her voice sounded hollow even to her. As they continued, a glint from the ground caught her eye. A broken mirror shard, dull from neglect, yet it reflected their frightened faces back to her. "What happened to us?" she whispered, gripping it tightly, as if it were a talisman against the nightmare gripping their existence. "Mommy! Look!" Lucy squeaked, pointing ahead. Through a cluster of twisted trees stood a dilapidated cabin, cloaked in shadows, its windows black like empty eyes. Should they approach? It felt wrong, but the instincts of desperation pushed them ahead. Sarah slowed her pace, unsure of the danger that might dwell within. "Stay close," she ordered, almost fiercely, though the words barely eased her own fear. They reluctantly shuffled toward the cabin, the creaking sound of the wood beneath their steps echoing like a heartbeat in the eerie silence. As they stepped onto the porch, the door swung open with a groan. The musty smell of decay wafted out, curling around them, coaxing them inside. "What do you think is in there, Mommy?" Max asked, eyes darting with trepidation between the door and the woods behind them. Without an answer, Sarah pushed inside. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through grimy windows. Shadows lurked in the corners, coiling and shifting like living things. "Let us see if anyone is here," Sarah whispered, trying to infuse her voice with a confidence she didn't feel. She flicked the light switch, but it crumbled in dust beneath her touch. Darkness closed in around them, smothering every hint of safety. Suddenly, a creak echoed from the back of the cabin. It was deliberate, heavy, like footsteps. The three of them froze, hearts racing, breath caught, pulse pounding in their ears. Sarah turned, pointing to the far left corner. "Go. Hide." They dashed behind a dilapidated sofa, tucking themselves into the shadows, hearts pounding loud enough to drown out the creeping dread. Sarah's eyes widened as a figure emerged from the dark, silhouetted against the fading light. He was familiar yet grotesque, with features that twisted memories into nightmares. "Mr. Thompson." He. His laughter slithered through the space. "You thought you could escape me? Oh, how delightfully naive." The air thickened, suffocating, and Sarah's heart raced furiously. He was closer than they anticipated. She could feel the presence looming over them, a cold chill creeping along her spine. She had to remain strong for her children, but adrenaline surged through her veins, primal and raw. "Listen to your fears," Mr. Thompson hissed, the shadows swirling closer around him. "They'll tell you where to hide and where to die." Just then, Lucy gasped, her eyes wide as they darted toward the door. Something was moving. Something was waiting. Sarah's instinct flared as she caught a glimpse of motion. No. Not again. They had to fight back, but every second spent in that haunted cabin drew them deeper into despair. Was there still a chance? Or had they walked into a trap from which they could never return? As a creeping sensation clawed at her throat, Sarah realized their time was running out. Fear was no longer just a feeling. It was a living, breathing entity swirling around them, ready to claim its prize. "Stay close." She whispered urgently, ready to make a desperate stand. But in the depths of that ominous darkness, would they find the strength to confront their worst fears? What awaited in the pitch-black beyond? The cabin creaked under the weight of darkness, its very structure seeming to breathe with the suffocating tension filling the air. Sarah pressed her back against the worn sofa, hoping it would swallow her whole, pulling her further into its depths. The children huddled close, their small bodies trembling against her. "Mommy," Max whispered, his voice barely audible. Fear dripped from each word. "What do we do? We can't stay here." "I know," she murmured back, trying to infuse enough strength into her words to calm them. Yet, she felt the precariousness of their situation weighing down on her like a heavy shroud. Mr. Thompson's laughter echoed in the dimness, sounding less like a human and more like something monstrous, warped by malevolence. "You think hiding will save you?" he taunted, stepping further into their space, his form becoming more defined. "You will never escape what you fear." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The tension twisted her stomach like a vice. She needed to act. She needed to protect them. She focused on Mr. Thompson, willing herself not to show her fear. "What do you want?" she shouted, her voice stronger than she felt. "Oh, but the question is," he paused dramatically, smirking, "what do you think I want?" He extended his arms as shadows flickered around him, as if awaiting orders. "Get away from us!" Max cried out, his face pale and eyes wide. "I want to let you hurt us." "Such bravado," Mr. Thompson replied, mockingly. "But this isn't just about you, little boy." With a swift, graceful movement, he gestured towards the door. "You should look outside. It's right there. Can you feel it? The fear is alive, like I am. It's hungry," he said, leaning closer, his breath hot and rancid, "and it's waiting just for you." Sarah exchanged frantic glances with her children. They needed to know, they needed to create a plan. "What do you mean?" she pressed, keeping her voice strong. "What waits outside?" "The forest," he whispered, the darkness almost wrapping around him as if to shield his sadistic smile. "It wants to consume your very essence. It thirsts for your despair." Sudden howls echoed outside loud, primal. Shadows shifted in the window, darting, waiting, searching. They were not alone. Sarah could feel the collective gaze of the forest's creatures upon them, eyes glinting like dying embers. "Look!" Lucy cried, her tiny voice cutting through the thick despair. She pointed toward a window where a pair of glowing eyes stared back at them, sunk deep within fluid darkness. "Just stay quiet," Sarah urged, terror welling up inside. "We can't let them in." The glass rattled, and something clawed at the edges of the door. With each thud, it became increasingly clear that they were not just being hunted by Mr. Thompson, but something far more insidious, the hunger of the woods. "I can help you," his words slithered through the air again. "I can guide you to the only way out. Just step outside." "Shut up!" Max yelled, clenching his fists. "We don't want your help." "Oh, but dear boy," Mr. Thompson chuckled darkly, "you're going to need it, and soon." Suddenly, the door splintered under the force of whatever was outside, a jagged crack widening and splintering open as shrieks began to echo in the darkness. The thing beyond was breaking through. "Mommy!" Lucy screamed, tightening her grip on Sarah. In that instant, a primal instinct surged through Sarah. Adrenaline flooded her system. "We have to go now. We need to find another way out." As she propelled her children toward the back of the cabin, a horrific crash sounded from the front, and shadows poured in like a tide, engulfing everything in their path. Can fear manifest physically? Could the very essence of terror reach back to entwine its victims? Sarah prayed her family would survive this fray, this night that stretched endlessly before them. As they made for the rear exit, the howl of the forest exploded in a cacophony layered, beautiful, and terrifying. What would await them in the heart of the forest? Would they find safety, or would it lead them deeper into horror? Each step they took sent shudders coursing through Sarah, her heart racing with dread. And then, as they reached the back door, another figure loomed in the shadows, this one cloaked in white, its face hidden from view. It stood silently, observing under the moonlight. Hope or harbinger? Please. Sarah breathed, clutching her children tightly, unaware of the darkness that crept behind her. Just as everything seemed still, the figure took a step forward. What awaited them in that moment of breathless silence? Would they find an ally or a far worse fate? Only the night would tell. The figure moved closer, its outline shifting like mist under the pale glow of the moon. Sarah could feel the tension in the air. Her heart raced, a drumbeat of dread echoing in her ears. Who are you? She tightened her grip on her children, both trembling against her. The figure lifted its head slightly, revealing nothing but shadows. An eerie chill swept through the room, as if the temperature had plummeted. Max stepped back, pulling Lucy with him. I'm not here to harm you. The voice that floated from the figure was soft, almost soothing, yet it carried an unnatural resonance. I'm here to warn you. You must leave, now. Leave? Where? Sarah's words faltered. Outside? It's worse out there. No. Not out there, the figure urged, gesturing towards the cabin's depths. You must go deeper into the earth. Immerse yourselves in the silence. Only then will you be safe. Safe from what? Max's voice quivered, a mixture of curiosity and fear. From him, the figure said, tilting its head ominously toward Mr. Thompson, who stood still, smirking, as if fully savoring the scene. The flickering shadows danced around Thompson like vultures, eager for the kill. He feeds on you, on your fear, the figure continued, undeterred by the impending danger. You must not let him consume you, or the forest will claim you both. Shut up. Thompson's voice erupted, furious, drowning out the figure's warning. You don't know what's out there, you only know fear. Look around you. It's too late. You're already part of it. From outside came the awful sound again, a cacophony of growls, howls, and shrill rustles. Dark shapes slithered at the edge of the forest, ready to plunge into the cabin's embrace. Don't listen to him. The figure insisted, urgency twisting its voice. The woods are alive with darkness. We need to move before they breach this place. Feeling an almost magnetic pull toward the hidden depths of the cabin, Sarah's instincts warred with caution. She dared a glance back at the gaping shadows swallowing the doorframe. What's down there? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. An ancient path, the figure replied, it leads away from the forest's grasp. But you won't have much time. Before Sarah could respond, Mr. Thompson let out another bone-chilling laugh, his eyes glowing like dying stars. You think you can escape? The forest is relentless. And with each moment you waste, it grows stronger. With a sudden crashing sound, more figures, the shadows of the woods began to break through the front door's remnants. Deep, animalistic growls reverberated around them, each pulse of noise driving them closer to chaos. Now! The figure urged, taking a step toward the gathering darkness. Follow me if you want to survive. Torn between the haunting figure and the oncoming tide of terror, Sarah had only seconds to decide. Fear clawed at her throat, suffocation in a wave of uncertainty. She glanced back at her children, their wide eyes reflected a terror she felt in the pit of her stomach. Quick! She shouted before she could think. We need to go. Trust me. They darted toward the shadows, the figure leading the charge, followed by Sarah and her children. As the air thickened with dread, the shadows entwined them, hungry and relentless. Would they escape the grasp of the darkness, or was this just another trap? The figure moved into the depths of the cabin, pulling them along as the howls grew louder, closer. Just as they crossed the threshold into the hidden space, the door ripped open completely, darkness spilling into the cabin like ink. "Run!" Sarah screamed as they plunged into the depths, but was it too late? What would they find in the shadows below? Would they uncover safety, or another layer of horror? Descent. It was cold and cramped as they followed the figure deeper into the hidden depths of the cabin. The air was thick with dampness, encasing them in shadows that dripped with a sense of foreboding. The walls were rough against Sarah's hands as she guided her children, their frightened whispers fading into the echoing silence behind them. "Mommy, what's happening?" Max's voice trembled, clutching onto Lucy who pressed against him like a shadow of her own. "Just keep moving," Sarah urged, her heart racing. Each footfall felt like a countdown, a reminder of the dangers that awaited them above. That twisted laughter from Mr. Thompson echoed in her mind, taunting her resolve. "Faster, quicker!" shouted the shadowy figure, which merely swirled like smoke, leading them down a narrow, winding staircase. The darkness felt like a living organism, tugging at them with icy fingers. A sudden flicker of light surged ahead like a beacon. "Almost there." The figure called back. Sarah pushed harder, their breaths came out in puffs, loud in the restrictive quiet. This light was a promise, a hope blooming amidst despair. Finally, they reached a small cavern. The walls glimmered faintly with a bluish hue, illuminating their faces like a distant star. But the beauty felt fleeting, the low growls from above quaked through the ground, promising imminent dread. "What is this place?" Sarah asked, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "It is a sanctuary, a threshold," the shadow said, voice echoing powerfully. "Listen closely. The forest cannot reach you here, but you must listen." "What do you mean?" Lucy's small, frightened face peered up, wide-eyed. "If you wish to be free, you must face your fears. Only by challenging the darkness can you reclaim your light," the figure explained, gesturing to an ancient symbol etched into the stone before them. It pulsed gently, like a heart alive with hope. Sarah exchanged a worried glance with the kids. "Face our fears?" she murmured, attempting to wrap her mind around the entire notion. She could still sense Mr. Thompson's sinister presence lurking just above. "How?" "You must confront the truth behind your fears," the figure urged. "Only then will you find the strength to overcome. Trust yourselves." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered. The shadow's face distorted, twisting into something unsettling. "You must hurry," it cried as the air shook, a wild storm of chaos stirring outside. "Sarah!" a voice surged from above. It was Thompson's, taunting like a child poking at a hornet's nest. "You think you can hide down there? You'll never escape me." The shadows pressed against the entrance, clawing hungrily at the threshold, their whispers urging, pleading for her to succumb to despair. But Sarah felt the surge of determination. "Mommy, what do we do?" Max whimpered, gripping Lucy's hand tighter. "Remember what we talked about. Think of the happy times," Sarah said, breathing deeply, her heart pounding fiercely. "Let us create a shield, you and me. We have to stand as one." They nodded vigorously, feigning courage despite the pressure of their reality bearing down. "Close your eyes, remember the laughter, the joy," Sarah instructed. As they focused, scenes from their lives started to swirl in their thoughts: their family at the park, the warmth of sunny days. The dim light from the symbol pulsed stronger at the forefront of their minds. "Think of how happy we are together. Feel that love," Sarah encouraged. But Thompson's voice grew louder, mocking them. "You are nothing. Fragile. Worthless." Max opened his eyes, voice breaking. It's not true." "No, it's not true," Sarah declared, feeling the warmth of their unity burn brighter. "Just picture our laughter driving him away." Suddenly, a bright light erupted from their clasped hands, illuminated by their shared memories, escalating into an explosion of energy that momentarily stunned the darkness. "Do you think that light will save you?" Thompson's voice was furious now, snarling as shadows pushed through the entrance, desperate to reclaim their hold. "Together!" Sarah shouted, drawing energy from her children, feeling their fear morphing into strength. The light engulfed the room. "We are stronger than you." The shadows recoiled, dimming, flickering like dying embers against the fierce warmth they radiated. The figure swirled closer, lending its echoing presence to their plea. "Do not yield," it instructed. "Focus on the love that binds you. Let it transcend your fears." Drawing on memories of laughter and love, Sarah poured every ounce of hope into the light, feeling it pulsate with the heartbeat of their family. The dark shapes hissed, slithering back as the radiance surged forward, sweeping them into its embrace. "No!" Thompson roared, retreating. "You will not defeat me. I hunger for your fear." But it was too late. The light erupted, swallowing the shadows, brightening the cavern until a brilliant flash enveloped them all. Time felt distorted, as they floated within the warm glow. Colors swirled and erupted, overwhelming. Then silence. Their surroundings shifted. No longer in the dark confines of the cabin, they felt themselves emerge into the comforts of their home, a warm embrace against the night, decades of worry and tension erased. The sun shone bright through the window, and laughter filled the air, the laughter Sarah yearned for. Stunned yet awake, she felt her children beside her, still clutching her hand. "Mommy?" Max spoke up, tentatively. "Did we win?" Sarah looked into their innocent eyes, filled with wonder. "Yes, we did," she whispered, holding them tightly. "We beat the darkness together." But deep inside her heart, under the warmth of reality, a nagging fear lingered. Was he truly gone? Would he return? "Let us make sure we share this story. It's important," she said gently, sparking hope reflected in their eyes. They would tell of the shadows and the darkness, but also of perseverance, laughter, and love conquering all. With their hands intertwined, they left the lingering darkness behind, determined to face whatever shadows awaited. And as the day dawned, they stepped forward into a new beginning together. You need to subscribe now if you don't want to miss these spine-tingling stories that you just can't ignore. Smash that like button now to help our community grow, and flood the comments with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. Let us hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this conclusion. Send it to at least 5 friends who need to witness this finale. Join us, stand together against the dark.